out to the DJ for playing the song they weren't supposed to play. I like that.
As long as it's Jigga, it's good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all for it. Thank you guys for coming through. Thanks for stopping by the pod. This is Watch Less, Complex's podcast about movies and TV. But instead of worrying about all the bullshit that goes on the timeline, we're just giving you the real. My name's Cal, Deputy Editor of Pop Culture here at Complex. It's always got the homie Frazier in the building, the summer man. It's not about us. It is about our illustrious guest. First guest.
Woo!
I mean, you're on the first podcast, so, big it up for that. You guys know this man. He's the creator of Blackish, which spawned off a bunch of other shows.
The Ish universe.
Ish universe is here. But he's working on a lot else. He's signed with Netflix last year. He's got like 20 different shows he's working on there. He's working on movies. He's writing Coming to America sequel. Give it up for Kenya Barris.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming through here.
I thought I was doing something, but I'm just kidding.
He came in iced.
Right.
I don't know if he got a memo about the change you had on,
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
he came in shining. Before we get into anything, we were talking, I mentioned it a little bit in the back, but I don't think we can start this podcast off without talking about the recent passing of John Witherspoon.
Yeah.
He's a monumental figure in the world of comedy, especially for like black entertainment. And I know he's worked a couple of episodes of Blackish as well, so I was wondering if you had any memories or thoughts that you'd like to share about John and his legacy.
I mean, he's Pops forever for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool with Marlon and Sean, but he came and did my show, and he was just everything you wanted him to be. He played a character, JB, who was like a shitty accountant who didn't have an office and worked out of a diner. But he was, you kind of could just put words on a page and he could make anything funny. Mm-hmm. That was the thing. He was legitimately a person who built a character and let that character, become like iconic through his words, through his lens, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
he's really going to be missed.
I think it's dope that you mentioned that he was Pops for you, because I think, in a piece that I did for the site, it was talking about how, because he's been doing things for so long, it feels like it depends, your age will base which John Witherspoon you remember. Like, right. I know, Boomerang, he was the
bang, bang, bang.
Bang, bang, bang at the dinner table. And you mentioned in Pops. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm all Pops.
Some kids might have, he was Spoon on Tracy Morgan.
Or Granddad.
Yeah, Granddad on the Boondocks is a big one.
Yeah.
So, it's dope to see. Were you cool with him before he was on the show? Or?
I knew him. You know what I'm saying? I've always seen him around. He always was super nice. Exactly who you think he is who he was. Knew his wife's an art dealer, and son does the best impersonation of
his son's hilarious.
Very, very funny. So it was shocking for me, you know what I'm saying? I know we all have our moments, but it was shocking and sad, and I'm glad that he left a legacy to be celebrated.
Yeah, it was dope. If you guys aren't aware of John Witherspoon, definitely just go on YouTube and just type his name. There's so much hilarious content from him. But again, it's Kenya Barris is here today. There's so much content coming from you. Before we get into the new stuff, though, we wanted to talk about you spent so much time working on Blackish. There were so many amazing episodes. I think one of my favorite, it's not even that funny, it's just the speech that Andre gives after the election, and, at work going back and forth with his coworkers. But I was wondering for you, what were some of your favorite memories or moments from the show that you had a hand in?
That was definitely one of them. I think I wrote that episode, that being able to that was interesting because the speed of television, we were able to get that episode on like right after he took office, and we threw out another episode and wrote it and produced it and got it shot and edited in 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
So it came on literally right after it happened, and it was during a time Chappelle had done that amazing monologue, which I think sort of re-put him back in the zeitgeist in a huge way on SNL, and we were able to sort of be in that conversation and get people talking. And I think that was it came from a conversation in the writer's room where half the room was, white liberal writers who were really upset, and they were like, I can't believe this. And they were really, I can't work. And I'm like, dude, I get it, but we're used to not getting our way. 100%. You know what I'm saying? I was like, so you got to we got to keep going. And, to be able to have that conversation and really sort of in that speech that you're talking about, Anthony has a moment where he said, black people, I'm pissed. I'm super pissed. But, black people, we're going to, in the hood, we're going to go vote. And it doesn't really matter for us who won. The hood wasn't really going to change, but we still took part in this, system because we want to be a part of the, of the system. So having the, that speech really for me was one of the highlights of the whole show.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Also, I wanted to talk too. I forgot that there was a word release that you're basically turning what was the Juneteenth episode into a play or like a stage musical. When did the idea for that come about? Was it when you were working on that episode?
Yeah, I was working on that episode, and we actually made it sort of like musical, and it was super fun to do, and it actually came out really well. And after a while, I was like, there's a bigger story to talk about, and actually now is really important because there's a huge thing sort of brewing that's kind of like I've been dealing with some Ben Crump and some other, like the reparations conversation is about to sort of be the conversation that is going to be the next border control or same-sex marriage. It's going to be one of the bigger conversations. There is a moment where actually Ben Crump, who's a big attorney, he was Mike Brown's attorney and Trayvon Martin's attorney, Philando Castile's attorney, but he is part of a family that's representing there were these dictagraphs that Harvard has, that they had these two slaves, Renty and I forget the other one's name, but they were husband and wife, or supposed to be husband and wife, but they were, dictagraphs are like, there are really detailed older pictures, you know what I'm saying? They are beautiful, but Harvard's made tens and tens of millions of dollars taking them on tour and talking about them. They were really originally used because a professor at Harvard was using those pictures to say, as proof that blacks were inferior.
Oh, wow.
But now they sort of over the time have become, because they're some of the oldest and most detailed descriptions or examples of what slavery looked like or whatever. They've gone on tour and made all the money. So the family wants the pictures back. Harvard didn't want to give them back. Ben Crump sued and for a piece of Harvard's endowment, like an undisclosed amount. Those lawsuits usually take tons and tons and tons of time. Harvard went and immediately started having settlement talks.
Oh, wow.
Or wants to have settlement talks. And part of that is setting up for the reparations conversations, that there's a huge group of legal minds that are getting together to say there is a notion that you have to put, there's never been a prosecutable case of slavery. You know what I'm saying? And that is as horrible as the Holocaust was, there's a face to put to that evil. Slavery wasn't illegal. So if someone now says, they want to go against it, it was morally, people can say that, but it wasn't legally wrong. The country there was nothing wrong if someone had slaves. And so it's the greatest human atrocity to ever happen in the world. And so there's a great legal minds that are getting together that they're going to put a case against the United States. And they think that there is a very good chance that the case has real traction. Right. There's been things I've heard talked about, like there's a version of no more taxes for blacks, for people of African American descent and things like that. Like, it's a huge conversation. So all that to say, Juneteenth for me was, I used to laugh at Juneteenth growing up. I used to be like, Juneteenth, I'm saying, like, this is bullshit. But it was, when I got older, I realized like how stupid Columbus Day was and all this thing. How as much as I love hot dogs and fireworks, how can we say that that's Independence Day if everyone wasn't free?
Facts.
And so I really wanted to make that something. After that episode came out, Apple put Juneteenth on their calendar. It's on everyone's phones. Google then followed up and put it on their calendar. So me and Pharrell got together. We got the Oscar Eustace, who runs the Public Theater in New York, to say that he would produce it, and we're trying to get the play done.
That's awesome. Is it difficult? Because I imagine that's a totally different structure than.
It's completely difficult.
Yeah.
It's literally, plays take forever to get going, and then my schedule has been so busy. Pearl's actually done a couple songs that are amazing already for it, but it's a long process. But we want to do it right.
And is it a modern sound, or
it's both?
Okay.
It deals with a guy who finds out that he's related, through his DNA track, finds out he's related to some slaves in Africa, in Texas, who were on a slave farm in Texas. And he finds a piece of documentation that shows that there was complicity between the United States government and the Texas landowners too, which is actually what happened. Juneteenth, they let it go. We were supposed to be freed 3 months before, but the Texas landowners let it go for 3 months without letting the slaves know because they wanted one more crop.
Oh, wow.
And, so it was hundreds of thousands of people kept in slavery, which was already wrong. So he finds that the government, the U.S. government, actually knew what the state was doing. And so it's the first sort of, in fact, moment of culpability between the government. So that's where the play sort of takes place.
Gotcha.
It's interesting, too, that you said you feel something brewing, because I think we're starting to see that reflected in the art, too. Like, we just saw Watchmen depict the Tulsa Massacre, too, which was another event that I feel like a lot of people weren't as clued into as they should have been.
I think that right now there is a lot of things that, we're seeing with Me Too. We're seeing it's a time of accountability. And I think that there is, that is something that accountability has to sort of, catch up to. I think that, so much of what we've done is influenced by that time in our life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's even affected our genes. You know what I'm saying? Like, in just the idea of epigenetic coding, of if you're any people that go through a certain amount of bad things or this, or if you live in a cold environment, it changes who you are. And I think we see higher blood pressure, higher cholesterol, higher this, because of the stress and tension and things over hundreds of years happen.
Word. Yes, it's a hard goddamn life, guys, just so you're aware. It sucks. No, but I guess, this kind of shifts perfectly into something that we see a lot in your content anyway, where you keep the funny, but you make sure that there's real social commentary. You're talking about real issues that are going on, today. Was that something you always wanted to do, or do you feel like now that you've been put in these power positions that you have to make sure that those statements are being made through your art?
I definitely want to talk about stuff. I don't know that it has to be sort of in the same light that Blackish is, but I do think that just as a writer, you want to say something, even it's about relationships or about parenting or about the world we live in. I feel like I definitely want to have, want my sort of voice to be something that talks about things and has something to say. I feel like even when I would look at stuff like, everything Norman Lear did, things that, I was a huge Spike Lee fan.
Right.
Those are the things that really sort of made me want to do what I'm doing.
That's dope. It's been a year. You've been with Netflix. You mentioned, in the back before we got out here that the last 8 months have been
Hardest in my life.
Because I know the one series that piqued my interest the most was Black Excellence with you and Rashida Jones. And it was because they said that you're doing your usual writing and producing, but you're also going to be starring in it. When did you get your IMDb does not have a lot of acting credits.
Right. Has none, maybe one.
When did you get the idea to be like, look, I want to be in front of the camera for this as well?
I didn't want to do it. I mean, we started casting for it, and we had somebody we wanted to do it, and then it felt really weird to have somebody play me again. Yeah. That show kind of already exists.
Facts.
And then I had a conversation with Larry David, and he really, which is, Seinfeld and Curb and, all the stuff he's done, really, he's one of my writing heroes, but he was saying I had to do it. And he was explaining to me why and, how you do it and, the idea of sort of I'm not an actor, but that kind of makes it okay. But it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
I'm assuming you went through a lot of acting classes.
I didn't do one acting class. I didn't do one acting class.
But it's changed your perspective a little bit in terms of writing.
I think anybody who wants to write or direct, you have to take an acting class or try to act because it changes. Like I told you, I was like, I'd rather you point a gun at me than a camera. Like you could rob me with a camera. I feel like you're so vulnerable, especially with 8K cameras now. I'm fucking not Boris. You know what I'm saying? You're sitting there and everything is right on you, and you can't. If you're having a bad day, if you're nervous, if you feel fat, if you feel, sad, if you feel whatever the case may be, it's all right there and you can't hide it. Right. And I think when I'm on the other side of the camera, I'm like, why doesn't he just do this? Why is he not getting it? It changes the way that I sort of will talk to actors and how I'll deal with actors moving forward. And it's, the hours are crazy. You're up at 4 o'clock in the morning because you have to go through hair and makeup, and you're in every scene. And I'm writing and acting and producing and directing. So it literally is, I'm literally coming out from a scene, rewatching scenes, going back telling people in the middle of scenes what to do, saying that this light isn't in the right place or this isn't there, and then, you know, having to do rewrites. My brain feels like pudding when I'm done.
It's a little full circle though, because I've read that you tried stand-up comedy at first coming in, so that has a performance aspect that you kind of scaled back from.
Yeah,
back in it.
I sucked at stand-up. I mean, I realized that I was good at. Before Bernie passed, I got to write jokes for Bernie and do some. You know, but I was good at writing people's jokes, and I would, you know, and a college kid, I could sell a joke for $20 or $50 and be like, oh, but I didn't have the performance, you know, element of it. I think Rashida on the show has really, really, really helped me.
Yeah.
And the way we're shooting it, it's not like a regular show. We're shooting it. The conceit is that it's my daughter's documentary that she's shooting to get into her entry exam to get into NYU.
Oh, okay.
So she's documenting her family. So it's shot docu-style. So we don't have to do turnarounds and coverage and things like that. It's all sort of like fly on the wall things. So you get to, it's kind of improv-esque. It's fun, but it's also exhausting.
What are some gems that LD gave you?
Use the, you know, when you are going and you're casting, whenever you're casting people, those are your moments that you remember of how you're actually going to act in the scene. You know what I'm saying? Like lock in those moments when you're, you know, playing around and casting. Have a playback. You know what I'm saying? Like when there was something, actually Will Smith was the first person I saw was working with Will, biggest actor in the world. And he, after every scene, at least the first few scenes, would come out and say, let me see what I did. And it would stop the scene, and in some aspects, it's kind of slowed it down, but then it would be so much better because you get to see, oh, I did this, or oh, I'm looking like this, so have playback, you know, remember what were your rehearsals, you know, have fun, you know, and, you know, it's a family show, but you haven't seen a family show like this. It's like you know, there's cursing and it's the stuff.
It's real life.
Yeah, it's real life.
I mean, I know it's Netflix, but there's any possibility when people can see Black Excellence?
April 1st, or April 3rd, the first
3rd.
week of April, yeah.
Okay, bet.
The commercials
will
will start coming out in like a few weeks, I think.
Dope, that's what's up. One of the other anticipated series that you've got coming out on Netflix is Intergalactic with Kid Cudi.
Yeah.
He talked about that on our in our cover story with Nigo not too long ago, and it's interesting because I believe it's animated, but it's also like his music is tied into it.
It's crazy. It's the craziest thing. I mean, in terms of TV, it's the most ambitious thing. Like, and it also shows who he is as an artist. So he came in and we were talking about, you know, actually it was me because I wanted him to do something with my daughter out of school, and he was super cool and did something for my daughter. But we started just talking about him, and I'm just been a huge Cudi fan forever. Okay. And he kind of like created his own lane. You know what I'm saying? He was one of the first, you know, rappers to started talking about like mental illness, you know, his sort of depression, and kind of like, you know, what's now sort of used to be sort of a pejorative, derogatory term like an emo rap. You know, now that sort of is thing. But we started talking, and he's a huge fan of animation, you know, and the notion of animation lasts forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can see, like, my kids will watch animation over and over and over. And so the idea of there's never been an album and a series dropped at the same time. And so each song will have a 30-minute narrative that kind of explains what that song is about, and it's a love story. And it takes you through, it's a story of, you know, guy meets girl, guy loses girl, guy gets girl back. But it's like the story of like a youthful love story told through Cudi's music. And as an artist, to take and hold off an amazing album. I wish I could let you guys hear it. Like, it's amazing.
You got it on the phone?
It's to hold off an amazing album. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's gonna be it's an album of bangers. You know, to do it for 2 years. You know what I'm saying? To get this series out, it's like that's the dedication that he has as an artist, and I feel like that makes, you know, the series, I think, something that people are gonna really, really. I hope people really, really enjoy.
So I'm assuming he's had this album done for 2 years, or was he still working on it?
We did it. He's still working on it now, but he has the basis of every episode, but he's going to do more music. Okay. But we did it specifically for this series.
Were there instances where you guys were working on something in the series and it kind of informed and like made changes to the songs, or are you not privy to that?
Yes and no. I mean, meaning we really let the music sort of drive the creative. But there's moments in the creative that Cudi will say, like, I want the song to sort of take this turn, you know, and he's doing the score to it with, you know, Doc Genius, I think his name is.
Genius,
Dr. Genius, yeah.
And it's just crazy. It's Ty Dolla $ign has a crazy collab on there, and just there's some crazy collabs in there. There's like a Gucci. Anyway, it's something you guys are going to be like. I hope people are really blown away with.
Well, hopefully we can get a zip of at some point.
Cudi would kill me if you.
Leave you backstage.
Also, it's looking at your IMDb. It's so interesting to see the different stuff you have going on because you're also producing the Astronomy Club series, which I know of a couple of those guys, John, James, and Gerard. They did the what was it called? Projecting series for Seriously TV under Complex. It was a couple years ago. And I know they do that as like a sketch group, in New York area.
It's hilarious. Honestly.
How is this going to be different than, say, a Mad TV or an In Living Color?
It's definitely black. You know what I'm saying? And black in a different way because they are, they're different type of guys. But it's sort of taking and examining black culture in a sort of in-your-face way. You know what I'm saying? One of the sketches I can talk about it. They have a magical Negro rehab center, and it's for it's the driver in Driving Miss Daisy. It's for Michael Clark Duncan's character in Green Mile.
Facts.
It's for the character from Bagger Vance, and it's like all these they really want to help white people. They just can't They can't stop being the helper. But it's that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's someone who has to have an emergency hairline transplant because it's
shit. That's real.
It's super.
It's kind of a little close right there, Kenya.
So it's in your face. I think it's super funny, but it's also it's smart. They're smart as hell, and I think that's where we're at right now. And we haven't really seen that. And they're like, as a black improv group, you haven't really seen them on a major stage. That's a big part of something. I got to produce Deion Cole's stand-up special.
Oh, word.
Through Netflix, and I was really proud of what he did. And and I think comedy is in a place where it's taking a turn again. And I think that it's I'm doing a movie with Jonah Hill at Netflix, and it's about an interracial couple and things. But I think that Netflix is a really good place to sort of get comedy back to where it needs to to get.
Well, how do you feel about Todd Phillips' recent comments about comedy?
It's interesting. I mean, Todd can say that because he already got rich off comedy.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? Now you can sort of say but I do think that he's not wrong. That I think that we're in a time right now where it's scary to sort of, I'm sitting here on this podcast and I'm like, I have to watch my publicist here. You have to watch everything you say, because it's you never know if it's a gotcha moment.
Yeah.
I was listening to Kevin Hart right before he had his accident. He was talking about Chappelle. And he was watching Chappelle's special. He felt like he knew what Chappelle had that he didn't, and he's like, Chappelle's free. He was like, this is a dude who he's untethered. You know what I'm saying? He's not worried about, and he's like, I think that he said that he thinks that special put him in the same conversation with Pryor, and I really agree because Chappelle he's not caring. Yeah. He's not trying to be malicious, but I think comedy is supposed to be something that makes you laugh, but also makes you think. And it's really hard to make people think and laugh when you're also really worried about saying the wrong thing.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like it's, growing up in Inglewood, I would say all kind of stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I would sometimes realize I was wrong and but you have a chance to sort of to realize that you're wrong or have conversations or whatever. Now you don't get a chance or a second chance. So I feel like, how can you make people laugh? The best laughs come when you're like, I can't believe I'm laughing at that.
Yeah.
And how can you make people feel like that if you can't say the thing to make them feel like that? And really those kind of laughs actually start conversations.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that is, to Todd's point, that's the hard part about comedy now. When you can't, I have a huge thing with saying nigga. I feel like I definitely say it. I definitely feel like that's my badge, you know what I'm saying, of my tribal, my entry card that I can say it.
Word.
I feel like I definitely think, obviously, I think white people can't say it. All my daughter's friends, they all think it's cool to say it. It's like all their little white friends think it's cool. It's part of the thing. And I feel like, she gives them passes. And I'm like, you can't give this pass. You don't have the ability to give this pass. But, she brought a real point up to me. She was like, how can I say that they can't say it and it's in the words of their favorite song.
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's like, it's like giving somebody a book to read, but saying you can't read page 13, page 48, but you want them to buy your book.
Yeah.
And so I have a real sort of like back and forth problem because I want to support artist freedom, and I totally believe in that. But at the same time, I'm like, how can we say that they can't say the word, but then we want them to buy the music?
100%.
So it's kind of, back and forth. So, having that conversation can get me in trouble based upon what I say or what I feel. And I feel like that really sort of hurts, how we sort of look at comedy and what it is. And I feel like, the best things, like you guys are doing a podcast, the best podcasts will be when people say shit they're not supposed to say.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? But you'll get less and less of that if you're not allowed to. Howard Stern, who I think is one of the best interviewers out there, goes in and gets people to really talk. And I think that's the thing that I really feel makes Howard Stern, but you're going to have less and less of those moments if everybody's worried about offending people.
Yeah, or I mean, you got the guy on SNL, like he lost a whole job for that, for the things he said on his podcast. So yeah, when you were talking about Chappelle, I was thinking he's free because he's not, like, this is all he's doing. All he has to do is do his stand-up special. Like, he doesn't have to worry about movies or, TV deals, any of that stuff. So, yeah, you can say whatever.
And if they cancel him now, I mean, he's rich. He's like, I don't care. And then you kind of see that. And Chappelle's fucking a genius. Like, you talk to him, he's literally a genius.
And that's the other thing. I think it's I don't want to say people get a pass for saying certain things, but if you're saying certain things, they have to be funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can't. I don't think Chappelle would get these deals and this money if he was whack. You know what I mean? Like, so the fact that he is one of the best stand-ups in the world can help him, be able to be freer with it.
That's what kind of got the SNL guy out of here. Just wasn't funny.
Yeah. It just wasn't. You were literally just being racist. But that's a different. But you bringing that up does make me think about Eddie Murphy, because I know he's not only got Dolomite, but he's supposed to be doing stand-up, next year, and he's made comments, basically just assuring people to know that the Eddie you saw back in Delirious and on Raw, I can't say those things, and he understands, which I guess is probably one of the hardest gigs. It's like maintaining a level of funny, but also making sure that you're not pissing off.
He really is I'm doing Coming to America with him, and that was my first time actually even meeting him and going up to the house and hanging out with him. And it was crazy to see Eddie laughing at my jokes. Like, it was like a super like, oh my God, it's Eddie Murphy. But he has reached such a pinnacle and such a place that, like, I really wonder how the whole stand-up thing for him is going to be. Because he was saying all kind of stuff during Delirious and Raw. And how do you sort of still be Eddie, but go out and be funny?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they're going to do something really special. I won't blow, but to get his comedy out. But it's really interesting. Even in Coming to America, there's moments where he's very, sure about, like, that's not what Coming to America is. Like, Coming to America was a fairy tale, and it was about this, and, like, we want to not make it about race and not make it about this, but it kind of has to be. So he has to walk a line in a really interesting way. I just saw Will just put this picture out. Will Smith just put this picture out. They're doing Bad Boys for Life on the same lot as on Tyler Perry's lot, same lot they're doing Coming to America. And so it was Will, Martin Lawrence, Eddie, and Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
And it just was like, for me, it was to see these four icons, black men, doing these reboots of these movies that have black leads, being shot on a studio owned by a black man.
Yes.
First.
Yeah.
These are the first films that are being done there, right?
Yeah. So it was insane. So I feel like it was such a proud moment. At the same time, it made me nervous. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like, you get these opportunities, and the hard part is when you get the opportunities, and you've asked for them, you can't get up to the plate and strike out. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's a lot of pressure, and I went to support it and get behind it, but also for them to step up and do their thing. It's an interesting sort of duality, sort of to know that you want the opportunities, but in getting the opportunities, what comes along with them.
Word.
Was it nerve-wracking for you to touch Coming to America specifically because
Yes.
it's such a staple?
It's an icon. It's an iconic film.
Yes, I did not want to do it.
So did Eddie hit you up specifically?
Kevin, yeah. Well, they hit me and asked me. if I would take a look at it, and it's one of my favorite movies. And immediately my answer was no. And then I read it and I was like, fuck. I mean, I was like,
You got to do it.
I feel like I had to do it. And, it is, it's scary. I did Shaft, and and it was a reboot of Shaft, and it was highest testing movie in New Line history, right? Everybody was like, they're ready to do Shaft. The next version of it basically bombed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Netflix, it did really well on Netflix, but in the theaters, basically bombed. And I'm like, the reason that the critics went after it, they said it was toxic masculinity, and I'm like, it's fucking Shaft.
Yeah, what do you expect?
Like it should have been called Shaft Toxic Masculinity. Like it would have been but I feel like we're in this age right now where it's, do you touch things that have, that kind of, history behind them? I really feel like we came up with something really special. I feel like we got everybody back. It's all kind of guest appearances, and it's an interesting sort of story. Eddie finds out that he has a son, and that son has to come back because his father is passing. His father's passed, to be prepared that in case he passes, to be the heir to the throne. And it deals with all kind of issues, but it's it's just beautifully cast, and it's seeing Eddie and those guys in the barbershop doing those things. You know what I'm saying? And
they take it back to the barber.
they go.
shop,
You're gonna see all
characters?
this. You're gonna see all the stuff that you remember. And getting it just was. It feels like being like a piece of history, part of a piece of history. But it's at the same time, I'm super afraid. You want it to be well received.
Word.
You want the opportunity, but you want it to work too.
I mean, you talk about Shaft bombing, but I mean, you also did Girls Trip. Like that was on the total opposite end, one of the most praised for how much money it made at the box office.
Right, and I think that's the part where it starts to get scary, because where Netflix is Netflix is a safer place, because you're not tied to what the box office says. Like a lot of people, I think Rotten Tomatoes, the critics gave it a 33 for Shaft. The audience score was a 96. I think it broke the record for the biggest discrepancy between the audience and
That makes sense.
and critics, and so you were tied to what the box office made, but people at home said they liked it. So I think that's the place where Netflix makes it, or streamers in general make it safer, is that you don't feel like you're worried about what the box office, does. And they have an amazing sort of algorithm that they've worked out. Like if, they have 5 years for a movie to pay for itself. Like if it's content satiation. They want, if an audience member or paying subscriber watches it within a certain amount of years, they feel like that was well worth the money. So I think that that's gonna be the new sort of box office.
Damn, okay, 5 years. That's a much. It's like 5 years versus 5 weeks. Like once a movie is
10 days, really.
Yeah.
You don't get it if it doesn't pop in the first.
Well, it's all about the opening weekend too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wrap. They're already talking about Terminator Dark Fate being like
Done.
Yeah. It's Saturday.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
It's
But
cooked out here? You saw that, right?
I saw it.
Did you like it?
I haven't seen it.
You didn't like it?
I thought it had amazing action sequences, but it just was like I could have, it was fine. It was. That's the purpose. There was no stars really. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely one of those films where they feel like they're retooling the series for the future.
Right.
So they're ushering out. They're bringing people back, but they're kind of going to the wayside for these newer characters.
it's done.
You guys heard it here
Hang it
first.
up.
If you've not seen it.
It's done.
I think we're coming to the end of our time, and on the show, this is like literally one of the first episodes we've ever recorded, but we want to ask everybody who's on, what are you watching right now? And I know you don't have a lot of time because you're so engrossed in everything, but what is Kenya Barris watching right now?
I loved Euphoria.
Talk about it.
I love
Talk
Euphoria.
about
Very
it.
dope.
That carnival episode was one of the best episodes.
Yeah, that's
Bruh, well, we watched it, we're like, yo, this series is cool,
It's the
but
one.
this made the series work.
That episode, and they kind of Jack Gaspar stuff a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that episode was one of the best directed episodes of television I've ever seen. And then Succession is my shit.
Succession High, where y'all at? That's a big one. That's a big one.
show of the year.
Snowfall.
I just caught up on Snowfall, and that show was amazing.
Snowfall is my shit.
Rest
too.
in peace, John Singleton. He really did it with that show.
He killed it. I think Snowfall, Succession, Euphoria, something else I got into. Oh, I'm really liking Rhythm and Flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is. I really like
I don't
it.
know if you know, he's a after show alumnus.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Some light.
I had to do it. I'm sorry, but he was episode 2. Shouts out my guy, the Superman. That's crazy. That's crazy.
But yeah, it's so much TV on right now. I feel like
It's too much.
It's so much TV, but it's also, it's great. It's fun, you know what I'm saying, to sort of be a part of it. I can't wait for Ozark to come back. I think that Blackish is having I know it's my show, but I think Blackish is having a really, really strong year.
Talk about it.
I think Grownish, when it comes back with the new stuff, is going to be really, really strong. I'm loving, you know, I love the stuff that I shout out to my own shit, but you know, I'm really loving that. And we were talking about The Irishman.
Yeah.
I think people are gonna like that, but I really say right now my number 1 is probably Secession.
I'm with it. That's
And the Pusha T
That's just
remix of the theme
Crazy.
song was incredible.
bonkers.
Just the facts.
Well, that's gonna do it for us this week, man. I appreciate you coming through.
I would love to come back whenever.
I mean, I'm sure you're gonna have a million more shows.
Don't have that many.
Go check it out.
Oh man, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. If you enjoyed this amazing conversation with Kenya Barris, check out the full interview on the Watchlist Podcast. The Watchlist Podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.